Get Over It, April Evans by Ashley Herring Blake. This is the sequel to Dream On, Ramona Riley, but it's not really a sequel. It's just like a series of romance novels that follows the same group of friends, so you can read this as a standalone. I don't know that I'd recommend reading this as a standalone. I think I have found my least favorite Ashley Herring Blake novel. It's not bad. She's a good writer. I've read all of her books. It's fine. This is a perfectly fine romance novel, but I don't think it has the extra oomph that Ashley Herring Blake is known for. I do think she's a good writer, and I think this isn't her best work. However, a lot of my critiques with this are just going to be personal gripes and less like literary criticism, but I do have some literary criticism. I'll get into a plot overview here. We have April Evans, a 30-something, down on her luck tattoo artist. She is still emotionally reeling from 3 years ago when her fiance cheated on her and then they broke up. She is a tattoo artist and has like thrown herself into her work. However, her tattoo shop has gone under. They are not profitable. She has just had to close the business. She gets a job teaching a summer class at a sort of summer camp lake retreat place. The summer camp vibes aren't as strong in this as I thought they would be. I was thinking like adult summer camp and like it'd be really fun because like she's living in a cabin, but like I don't really know what this like event resort camp is. I don't know. She's teaching art classes by a lake. She's living in the cabin for a summer. And oh no, the woman teaching the class with her and also living with her is Daphne Love, the younger woman her ex-fiance cheated on her with. This is a dual perspective novel. We get Daphne Love's perspective as well. She is like 20-something, mid-20s, early mid-20s. She was raised in a really conservative religious family that's disowned her. She has no contact with them. She's very inexperienced in life. She met this older woman, Elena, who's the mutual ex. They dated for 3 years, and then Elena has just dumped her, and she's sort of out into the world on this new job. She has sort of no life experience, very sort of sheltered. She sort of resents the past 3 years she spent as basically just like a housewife to this older woman who was not a good person. And she doesn't know that Elena was engaged to someone else when they first met. And so Daphne has no idea who April is, even though April does know who Daphne is and is very mad about it. However, that tension doesn't last very long because Daphne didn't know about the affair, and when April finds that out, she's like, oh, like it's not really your fault that our mutual ex was a cheating bitch. You know what I mean? So she can't really be that mad at Daphne, even though she starts the book out mad at Daphne. But really it's misplaced anger. She's mad at Elena, their ex. So this is about two people in an unlikely situation where they unlikely become friends and then unlikely fall in love with each other. There is not a lot of tension in this novel. You'd think with that premise there would be more, but there's really not. The only other real point of tension to carry this novel through is the fact that they are competing for some sort of art position, art spot in a gallery. For some reason, there was a British lady who was taking this like art class at this weird American middle of nowhere summer camp, and she runs this like big London gallery, and she's offering a spot basically to whoever creates the best art at this camp for some reason. And it's a big deal gallery, and people who get into the gallery don't fade away into obscurity. They have real careers. And so they are both artists, obviously, and they both really want the spot and sort of want to reinvent themselves. Daphne wants this cool experience of moving to London and living this life and having this career as a professional artist that she never thought she'd get to have. And April has just closed her tattoo shop. She needs something to reinvigorate herself, and so she also wants this London position. However, they don't really spend a lot of time like talking about really, really, really wanting this competition and like how they are in competition and there's only one spot and it can only go to one of them. So that's not really as tense as it could be. I think this book suffers because it does a lot of fun tropes and it doesn't milk any of them for all that they are worth. So we have an age gap, but it's only like 8 years and it's not that big a deal. April goes, but I'm older than you a couple times, and then Daphne is like, well, Elena was older than both of us. That was an 11-year age gap. So this is like nothing. And then it really doesn't go anywhere. I mean, and you really could play it up. There's a lot of potential to play that up. You have April, who's been through these life experiences and they have all failed. And she's like really, she's not depressed, but like she's down on her luck. She's in a slump here. And then you have Daphne, who wants to have all of these life experiences and hasn't had the option to yet. And that could really play off of each other. Like, Daphne's zest for life could really inspire April to appreciate the things that she's had. And even though she's failed, like, they were still an experience that affected her life. And, you know, now with Daphne, she doesn't feel so slumped anymore. Like, she feels like they could both take on the world and both have new experiences together. Something like that. And it doesn't, like, really get into the meat of it. And then you have the ex's ex thing, which, like, could be a really big butting heads moment. But they both hate their ex, so they're not, like, competing for the ex at all. And again, Daphne didn't realize that she was the other woman at first. And so, like, really there's one-sided animosity between them at the very start that very quickly gets resolved because Daphne's not really at fault here, so they can't really argue about it. So there's no tension there. I kind of wish that had been dragged out longer, because again, they're living together, and that's only like a point of contention if they hate each other, and they like do it first for like the first couple days, and then they're fine, and then they're just roommates who have a crush on each other, and it's like, oh, that's really convenient. So there's just not tension there. And again, the rival artist part, which is like the biggest point of contention, or like should be in the present tense, or like in the future tense, like driving this novel, it only really gets brought up a few times. It's not really a thing until the end. And they also don't really fight over it because they both like each other at that point. And so they like respect each other as artists, and they both want each other to do well. And like whoever succeeds in winning that, the other one's just going to be happy for them. So like there's just no tension. And then the cool summer camp premise was not a cool summer camp premise. I don't really understand still what this art class by the lake was. I think people just like come to the lake. It's called like Clover Wild because it's the Clover Lake series. So they just like come to stay at the lake for the summer, and then they also happen to take an art class. And that's just not like as fun as I was expecting. I don't know why I was thinking like summer camp with like activities and like everyone living in cabins together or something. I don't know. It just wasn't the most fun version of that I thought it could have been. I guess I didn't want to be. So I just wanted something different. Maybe that's a me thing. Also a me thing, neither of these characters were like my favorite out of Ashley Herring Blake's characters. Even in the first book, we see April as a side character. I didn't really care about her. She's an artist. She really likes astrology, which is like kind of boring and cliche, and there's a bunch of like boring cliche stuff with like tarot cards here. There's one good scene where, since April's into astrology, she's like trying to assess Daphne's birthday immediately, and so she gets Daphne's birthday at the very beginning of the book, and then later on it's Daphne's birthday, and she's like, no one knows it's my birthday. I've never had a party. My parents didn't believe in parties. They bought me highlighters as a present so that I could highlight the Bible. And then April remembers her birthday and throws her a party. That's sweet. That's probably actually the best outcome this could have possibly had, with like a boring astrology storyline. I'm just kind of tired of that. I feel like it's cliche. I've read Written in the Stars. I don't need to read another astrology romance book. It's not like heavily astrology there, but that's like one of the annoying little aspects of her character. She's artsy. Although I will say, the cover of this book did April dirty. She's supposed to be like an artsy goth girl, okay? And I saw like some promo art, like I think if you pre-ordered, you got like an art print with some promo art, and she looks like an artsy goth lady in that. But on the cover of this book, that is a soccer mom. It's giving soccer mom. This woman wants to speak to my manager. They did her real dirty. This looks like a book about a soccer mom who questions her life when she meets a younger woman and starts an affair, and blows up her life and her with her husband and her 2 kids who play soccer. I don't love this cover. The background's fine. Daphne looks fine. She's got the purple hair. She's cute, whatever. They did April dirty on the cover of her own book. That's tragic. But I didn't find April that compelling in Ramona's book. I didn't find her that compelling in this book. Daphne's also, she's fine. Sort of a cliche, religious upbringing, backstory. None of these characters are, like, exceptional. They don't, like, stand out, really. Like, we've read romance novels about these people before. There's nothing really crazy here. I also didn't think Daphne's sort of storyline or like growth arc was handled particularly well. Very early on, Daphne divulges that she really wants to have these life experiences. She feels like she's missed out on a lot. She's sort of a baby gay. She was only with this one woman. She's never really been on her own and like supported herself. She's never had a lot of friends. She tells this to April and this friend they end up making at the camp named Sasha. And they sort of devise a plan that they're gonna help Daphne do these things and have like crazy queer experiences and stuff. However, that only like comes up randomly to advance the plot. Daphne isn't really like thinking about any of that at any other point in the novel, except like when it comes up. And usually it's Sasha who comes up with it. Sasha is the best character in this novel. Sasha's just some random lady. She's like a butch chef. She sees Daphne and April talking at the bar one night and just comes up and is like, ladies, would anyone like to sleep with me? Either one of you? Both of you? I'm not picky. What's up? And April is immediately like, no, I know your type of fuckboy. We're not doing this. And Daphne's like, I don't know your type of fuckboy. I'm inexperienced. And so they all get to chatting and they all become friends. And they all devise this plan to help Daphne have like crazy experiences. Like they go out in the woods and then they all make out. And then they go skinny dipping. They go to a BDSM party at some point. It's not as interesting as it sounds. The smut in this is pretty good. However, I didn't love it because for how like conservative and sheltered Daphne is about everything, the book makes a point to tell you actually she's really sex positive and she really likes sex. And that feels less like a genuine character trait that genuinely applies to this woman's backstories and life experience, and more like the author wants them to fuck. It really feels like Ashley Herring Blake saying, don't worry, the repressed girl still fucks. They're still gonna get it on. There's still gonna be a strap-on scene. April still brought all of her sex toys to this cabin in the woods that she's going to be sharing with a complete stranger for just a few weeks. That still happens. They're still gonna fuck. It feels kind of fan servicey. Less like it was for the benefit of the character and more like it was for the benefit of the reader who just wanted smut. And like, it's fine. But I wasn't like in love with these characters or their relationship, to be honest. I don't think they had that much chemistry. I'll say it. And again, maybe that's just because I didn't really like, care about either of them. But I feel like they fall in love real fucking quickly. And it's just like them thinking about how they have feelings for each other, even though they don't really like do anything to really establish those feelings or like produce those feelings. It just feels like this is a romance novel, so inevitably they are going to fall in love, and so our characters are going to sit and think about how in love they are and how, oh my god, I'm so drawn to her and I didn't expect to be, but like, I love her. I've developed this emotional connection where I'm going to tell her I love her after a couple of weeks of living in a cabin together. Even though like 2 months ago I hated her. And we're also at completely different points in our lives. And I don't know. I don't think they built this relationship well, but I guess I just didn't like them, so I just didn't care. Low-key, I kind of just wanted them to be friends. Like, ideally, I would have gone for like a queer mentorship sort of relationship here, where April has done all of these things that Daphne hasn't and can sort of guide her. And April, I think, has been known to like have a bunch of one-night stands. Like, since her fiance cheated on her, she just like hasn't committed. And so, like, I think it would still be, like, a good character arc for her to be like, you know what, here's this beautiful young woman that I am attracted to, but, like, what if we were just friends? Like, what if we just had a platonic relationship and I didn't just treat her like a casual summer fling or something like that? With the book, it wants them to be in love. I guess people read romance novels for the romance, huh? But I just would have liked to see more development and, like, more scenes of them, like, really supporting each other or like getting each other in a way that no one else has. Maybe in regards to the ex, I don't know, in regards to art. I don't think there's a lot of art here, and the art's like kind of cheesy. Daphne's painting childhood portraits of herself with like the thematic undertones of like her religious drama. So it's just like portrait of the artist as a sad child. And then April's painting fucking tarot cards, but like she's the character in the tarot cards. And I feel like all this has been done before. It's not like groundbreaking. I can't imagine either of these in like a London gallery that's going to just kickstart their full-time art careers for the rest of their lives. It's like kind of cheesy, but maybe it's beautiful. You can't really see it. I don't think there's really like a ton of description about them either. There was nothing that made me go like, wow, I really want to see this painting. I just thought that's kind of cheesy. That's been done before. But I just wasn't really seeing the building blocks of their relationship. I think this book, more so than other Ashley Herring Blake novels, is like really internal. A lot of the times these characters are just like in their own head, and I think the book starts with a lot of info dumping backstory about the ex and like their relationships to the ex. So it's kind of like slow and just like cerebral and not like a lot of action happening in the moment. There is action, but it's a lot of these characters just thinking about their feelings, which isn't like the most interesting, especially when I'm not in love with the characters. So like this was sort of boring for an Ashley Herring Blake novel, and for like all of these tropes, like you have all of these tropes and you're still kind of boring about it. Like no, like get in there, do the fun stuff. I like a fun cheesy romance novel, but like do it, you know. I want to see these characters really interacting and like having these bonding moments, and they have some. They do, like they're living together, but like it's still like a lot of just internal dialogue. We do also get reappearances of some of the characters from the first book, and I thought that was kind of disappointing. Kind of a major spoiler if you care about spoilers, but Dylan and Ramona are engaged. They're gonna get married. They get married in this book, and like the wedding is like not a big deal at all. Like it's totally very quickly glossed over, and I'm like those were more interesting characters than these ones, and so I'm like I want to see the wedding of these two people that I've already read a whole book about. And it's just like it was surprisingly not a big deal. That is kind of a major spoiler, but also I feel like every romance series like this with a group of friends, the first couple is always getting married in the second book or the third book, or like they're engaged at least. And it's only been a year, and they're planning a celebrity wedding. And it is weird that April doesn't know about it. Like, so the conflict between April and Ramona here is that since Ramona's in love, fallen in love, and she's moved to LA to be with Dylan, her actress girlfriend, Ramona and April were childhood best friends if you haven't read the first book. But they sort of drifted apart because they're living in two different cities. Ramona's got this other stuff going on now. And April sort of resents her for like not being as present, not talking to her as often. But like they're still friends, and it is weird that Ramona didn't tell her about the wedding, and I guess she didn't want to tell her over text, and like she comes to Clover Lake. They're having the wedding in Clover Lake. Why would you not tell your best friend that you're having a wedding in Clover Lake? And I'm like, is she part of the wedding? Maybe it's really low key. I don't remember. And like that's weird. Like the wedding of the main characters at the very first book of your series should be a bigger deal than this. I feel like you'd text your best friend and being like, hey, Dylan and I are gonna secretly have a really low key ceremony back in Clover Lake, where you live and where you are my best friend, and would probably be maid of honor or something. Is she maid of honor in this? I really like don't remember any details of the wedding. I remember like it being really glossed over. Like, I don't even know if we see the wedding. I remember, like, the reception afterwards. And I'm like, can we talk about the wedding? So I guess I get why April is sort of mad at Ramona for that specifically. But she doesn't even know about that until Ramona gets here. And she's, like, mad at Ramona before that for just, like, not texting her as much. I don't know. It's kind of boring. It's like, girl, she's got her own life. You've got her own life. Like, you are adults. Like, you'll be okay. But the wedding thing is kind of weird. But like, why didn't Ramona? Say, oh, whatever. Who cares? I didn't care that much, to be honest. I wasn't reading the first book for their friendship either, so I wasn't reading this for their friendship. Whatever. We get a brief appearance from Ramona's little sister Olive, who I hope gets a book. I don't know if there's gonna be more books in this series. I hope Olive gets a book. She comes back from college and she's cut her hair short and she's butch, and I love that because her girlfriend is also butch. She has a very cute thing in the first book where she doesn't realize she's gay, but she's best friends with a butch lesbian who is like clearly in love with her, and then over the course of that book they, in the background, realize that they both have feelings for each other and start a relationship. So I really need a third book about the butch for butch childhood sweethearts. Ashley, please. Please. There are no books about Butch for Butch childhood sweethearts. If there are, tell me about them, but there's not. And I need this one. Please, Ashley. Please, for me. Me specifically, a stranger you do not know, who was mostly criticizing this book, even though it's fine. It's like a 3-star book. Like, it's fine. It's just not incredible. And I know you can write incredible books, Ashley Herring Blake. Give me the butches in the books. Maybe that's why I like Sasha. Because she's just like... she's just like a horny butch agent of chaos. That's what I wrote in my notes. She doesn't give a fuck. She's just chilling. She's like a chef. I pictured her older. I don't actually remember how she gets introduced, like what her age is, but I was picturing her even older than April, just like a little bit. And so it's just funny that she's coming up to these younger women at the bar, but she might have been like their age. I don't think she's actually that old. I think I just heard fuckboy butch chef and then like blacked out a little bit. You know how it is. I would also read a book about her because she becomes a bigger character than I thought. Like at first it sort of seems like she's just some like creepy pervert at the bar who's coming to chat up these two women who are like having an argument because they were both dating the same woman. But then she becomes friends with them. She's really personable and she sticks around, and April goes on a road trip with her at the end of the book. So I would see more of Sasha. She was funny. And I liked her. And I don't know who she would fall in love with. And I don't think she's from Clover Lake. I think she's moving to LA. Whatever. Bring her back. I'll read a book about Sasha in LA in the Clover Lake book series where she does not live in Clover Lake. That makes sense. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be well written, and I think you could do it, Ashley. There's even briefer mention of Lee, who gets mentioned a few more times in the first book. I don't think we really see them in the first book either. Maybe in a couple scenes actually. But they are another childhood friend of Ramona and April. They're non-binary. They're a hot fuck boy. I would like to see the hot fuck boy settle down and fall in love. That sounds like a more fun storyline than this. Again, I think this was always going to be my least favorite of the series just because I didn't care about April. But this series still has potential. I liked a lot of the side characters here. So like give me butches, give me gender non-conforming people, give me more Ashley. I do like Ashley Herring Blake. I do want to read more of her books. I've read all of her books. I will continue to read all of her books. This is fine. Even a disappointing book like this is still like fine, and it's not bad. There's not like plot holes everywhere. I just think a romance novel kind of lives and dies by how into the characters you are, and I just wasn't personally into these characters. But I was into a lot of the side characters, so give me more Ashley Herring Blake. I think that covers most of what I wanted to say. I have one more little note here, and that is Daphne's from Tennessee, so she has a slight southern accent, but only sometimes in the audiobook. I listened to this on audiobook, and the audiobook narrator does the audiobook narrator classic where they only give the character a southern accent when the text reminds them that the character has a southern accent. So for most of the book, she doesn't have an accent, but every once in a while, a little bit of a Tennessee drawl will slip in there. That's not Ashley Herring Blake's fault. That's the audiobook narrator. Why do narrators always do that? I feel they never commit to a southern accent. I will also say, I don't really think this was an audiobook problem with the narrator, but I found, like, the voices, like, the narrative voices between April and Daphne to be, like, really similar. Like, every once in a while, I would forget whose perspective I was in. And I don't think that was just because the audiobook narrator just kind of narrates them the same way and doesn't give, like, distinguishing voices for them. Because a lot of audiobooks do that, where they don't have really, really distinct voices for the characters, but, like, the actual, like, tone of the writing and, like, the narrative and, like, the way the sentences are constructed and, like, the way the characters speak or think are different enough that, like, you know who was talking. And with this, I did get jumbled. Like, they feel kind of same. In that they're both, like, sort of bland and, like, not that interesting, maybe. And so I just don't think either of them has a totally unique perspective that, like, really shines through in the writing itself. So another little critique there, I guess. But maybe an audiobook problem. Like, maybe reading the text, it is a slightly different experience. But usually I'm able to parse that through listening to an audiobook, and this didn't hit incredibly. I don't really want to call it weak writing, but I just didn't think it was strong writing. I think that's most of what I wanted to say. I kind of rambled, but that's like every video. Subscribe if you want to see more rambles. So all in all, not Ashley Herring Blake's best, but it's still like a fine romance novel. It's a very stock standard romance novel. Didn't work for me, but could work for someone who like sees characters more. Maybe if you're really into art. Maybe if you're really into characters who did grow up sort of repressed and conservative and have that strained relationship with their family. But I didn't really connect to this personally. But it was fun. So it's like a 3-star book. I wouldn't recommend starting with this as your first foray into Ashley Herring Blake, because I think it is like her worst showing, or her least interesting showing. But it's a perfectly fine showing. Not every book's gonna be a 5-star gigabanger. It's fine. It's a romance novel. If you like the description, you'll probably like it enough. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing exceptional. No twists and surprises. Works out mostly how you'd think. It's fine. Looking forward to the next book. Butches. Butch characters? Butches in the next book? I don't know who else it would be. I named like all the major side characters. It would have to be Lee or Olive or Sasha. There's no one else. Maybe there's not going to be a third book. Maybe it's just a duology of a series. But I want a third book about one of the Butches. Any of the Butches. Pick one. Draw a name out of a hat, Ashley. I'm sure she's probably already working on her next book. I don't know if it's in this series or whatever. We'll find out. I'll find out. I'll read it. I'll be there. Subscribe. And then you'll be there too. Good night.